All right. Welcome, everyone, to another episode of The Talk. I'm your host tonight, Brian Green, and tonight I'm streaming live from an undisclosed tropical HiFi location. And if you're tuning in live, we've got an open chat for you. So share comments, send questions, join in. We'd love for you to actually be part of the talk. So tonight, let me introduce our special guest. This is Desmond Bowe, who is the founder and, may I say, the big kahuna of Tiki tube amps.
Hey, Brian.
Yeah, welcome, Desmond. Great to have you on tonight.
Thanks. Good to be here.
So just to kind of kick things off a little bit and help people kind of get familiar with who you are and everything, maybe we can start with just a little bit of some background and maybe history of, how, like where you came from and how, Desmond's Tiki tube amps came to an existence.
Sure. So I'm Desmond. I build Tiki tube amps, which are HiFi stereos built into carved Tiki heads. They're all handmade. Each one is unique, and they do what they sound. I got into this. I started building these maybe 2 or 3 years ago. At the time, well, let me take a step back. I first got into this stuff. I was in a band in high school, and my guitar player had a tube amp. And at the time, we were like, "What's the deal with these vacuum tubes?" All we know is that the amp is heavy. And that's as far as it went at the time. But there was that sort of like, "Oh, what is this? This is strange." And then in my early 20s, I started a company building guitar and bass amps. This was all hand wired up in Seattle. And I basically taught myself how tubes worked, how stereos worked, whatever. And helped get the company off the ground and spent many days like soldering a bunch of circuits. So that's really where I cut my teeth with tube technology, with soldering, with amplifier construction. And those are guitar and bass amps. So slightly different circuits, slightly different use case, but same general principle. Fast forward a bit, after a while, it wasn't working out. So I left that company and started working in tech. I was a computer programmer for about 15 years and enjoyed that career. That was a lot of fun until it wasn't, and it was a lot of fun. And then one day the magic wore off. And I think a lot of people can kind of relate to that, having a career or a job that, kind of runs its course. And at the same time, it was the middle of pandemic, and I was turning 40 and just like asking myself a bunch of questions about, where do I want my life to go? Like, what's going on here? What do I want to do next? And it took a bit of work, but realized that my passions were pulling me outside of tech, and I wanted to pursue my creative ideas. And around the same time, the story of how this started, it's kind of dumb. People always like, what were you smoking? I wasn't smoking anything. I was completely sober, sitting on my couch one night, bored. And I think boredom is the new superpower, and no one's ever bored anymore. So there I was, and I was like, all right, well, what's cool? And I thought tiki heads are cool. And I thought, okay, what would make them cooler? I thought, what if they lit up? Okay, that's sort of cool. I thought maybe a neon light. And then I thought, what about vacuum tubes? I could stick the tubes in them, and then that would light up and be kind of fun. And then I thought, why not just put the whole stereo inside the tiki?
Right.
And I thought, that sounds pretty cool. So I sat on that for about 3 months. And then after 3 months, it still seemed cool. So I was like, you know what? Let's do, like, I don't even know if this is going to work, but let's give this a shot. I mean, I love woodworking. I love metalworking. Obviously, I love music. I've been a musician my whole life. I spent years building these amps. Like, it's kind of a niche thing. I like tiki. I like, bringing people together. So I just like found a log and cut it up, carved a tiki, and put all this stuff together. And not only did it work, it was so fun. It was so fun, Brian. Like, the thing's sitting there and it's staring at you and it's playing music, and it's like, this is ridiculous. So I've been working on these for about 2 or 3 years now, and they're awesome. They're awesome.
That's cool. I mean, yeah, the whole kind of embodiment of that like Tiki culture and inspiration, influence, and yeah, just like you said, bringing that basically to the party of people that love music and hi-fi, just being able to combine those two, and it's totally like, you know, passion project right there, and being able to just flower that into this business. That's such a cool
Yeah.
story.
Yeah, and it really brings together. I'm a guy that has like a bunch of different interests and a bunch of different things. And it is cool because it does let me exercise all these different sides of myself. Like I said, the music, the woodworking, the tiki, the bringing people together, the fun, the irreverence of it all. There's something very California about the whole thing. I live in Los Angeles. We didn't say this at the beginning, but and yeah, and so it feels like a really pure expression of me and who I am. And not a lot of people I think are into tiki stuff and know how to build these amps. So I sort of feel like this is my responsibility to make these and put them out in the world.
Yeah, I think that's kind of a nice springboard to kind of get into maybe the design and maybe the philosophy behind what's driving some of the different projects. Um, so primarily, are you working in just these like integrated amplifiers, or is there a little bit more to the product that you can kind of put together?
Great question. So everything's made to order. So it depends on what I feel like making, what the customer is interested in. Most of the products are integrated amplifiers. Um, that's sort of our standard preamp power section one thing. Of course, we can do mono blocks like mono tikis with two sort of totems, and build in other kinds of circuitry with a phono preamp or Bluetooth or whatever. Outside of amplifiers specifically, I also make speakers. Um, we have a pair of there's a pair of speakers which can be made waterproof if you've got like an outdoor backyard bar, and then an integrated totem which has the stereo and the speakers all in one kind of unit. If you want it in the corner, that's a little different from I would say a purist hi-fi setup, but it is nice I think for the customers that just want the one big statement piece. It's all enclosed and it's there doing its thing. I also make furniture. I make album racks, like vinyl storage in with like burnt plywood. That's kind of a fun look. And occasionally do sound installations. So if you wanted a listening room that was built in a tiki style, we can do that as well.
I think that's really cool. It's like this aesthetic kind of leads to so many different applications, like you were saying. Having something that's, you know, weatherable, you can have this outdoors or maybe like your backyard bar, you know, wherever you want that. And I think it would be kind of funny having that totem style where it's like the one integrated pole, maybe have that kind of off in the corner a little bit. And especially with like a Bluetooth module, just starts talking to people late in the evening.
Yeah, well, you touch on a really interesting thing about these tikis is I don't just do tikis. I build other things too. I'm working on a mermaid sculpture. I want to do the Starship Enterprise. Like, it's not just specifically like a tiki carving. It's kind of any sculpture. But a fun thing about tikis is when you have these faces, they have personality. They have their own soul. I like to call these stereos with soul, and it's not just because they're handmade. Like, they have an energy to them, and it's really funny. It's a really weird experience sitting and listening to the music and having your stereo listen with you. You're taking it in and it's like looking back at you with whatever expression it's got. And it's kind of this partner in the journey. And I wasn't expecting that when I started making these, but it's been a real a treat to sort of see, like, I have my idea when I make them, but then they also reveal themselves to me as to who they are.
Yeah, that totally touches on the aspect of the uniqueness of, you know, what you have to offer. And yeah, I know everything you mentioned is handmade, kind of made to order. So
Mm-hmm.
everything's going to be unique, kind of almost one of a kind. It can, um, but yeah, touching on it's like each sculpture, if you want to say it like that, has its own character, personality. And yeah, I noticed in some of like the collection that you have shared online that people can kind of take a look at. They've got personal names. You
They do have
got
names.
you got Larry, Earl. You mentioned the speakers earlier, Phil
Mm-hmm.
and Lillian.
Yeah.
So it's like, yeah, you're not getting this little like black box that hides in the shelf down and collects dust like so many components.
I love that you said that because my first idea, as I said, was how do I make a tiki head cooler? But now I think about it as how do I make stereos more fun? Because as you just said, like all stereos are boxes. Even the really fancy ones, like they're just boxes, and they hide out. I mean, sometimes check out my blah blah blah. It's a shiny stereo, and I paid a lot for it. Cool, but they often hide away on a shelf. Sometimes, some people with their stereos, they're in another room. You don't see any of this, and I'm thinking, why not have something that's like out front? You know, something that is part of your system that takes up space. So that I'm here, and your friends walk in, and they're like, "What's that?" So they are meant to be. They are meant to be seen. They are meant to be out there. They are meant to participate in whatever. If it's just you listening to music, if it's a party, like either way, they're there with you.
Yeah. And so I just threw up your website here. People can check it out.
Thank you.
And yeah, throughout, we'll get kind of into how people can contact you later and find things out.
Sure.
But let's see. Let's probably get into some of the kind of the internals of what you're doing inside of these tikis. So you mentioned you work with wood. That's kind of your primary medium. So where are you sourcing a specific type of wood, or is like where do your materials come from?
Yeah, good question. They come from all over. It's basically where can I recover suitable logs? I don't go out and cut down trees for these. It seems kind of uh, antithetical to my vibe here. So I'll just drive around town looking for trees that have been cut down, or if I hear chainsaws, I'll go chase that, um, and then look for things that as they are suitable. They have to be a certain size, a certain diameter in order to accommodate everything. The bigger, the better. My early ones were a little smaller, and now I'm working with bigger and bigger pieces because they're just more interesting. Um, one time I saw a house that was it was more than under construction. I think the whole thing was being demoed and rebuilt, and they had cut down an oak tree. So in the middle of the night, I hopped the fence and grabbed this huge log and hauled it over the fence. Must have been 80 pounds. I had to like uh, clean this thing over the fence um, and take it home with me. So it just depends. I mean, some woods are easier to work with than others, for sure. Um, I don't like to work with woods that are too hard because they're difficult to carve. Um, but some softwoods don't hold shape that well, and they can just be I don't know, they don't have as good a feel to it. So I'm open to whatever. I mean, aside from some of the woods at the margins, most things are kind of okay. And the difference lends themselves to like what's the style of tiki? Uh, what is the wood speaking to me? Um, so it's kind of an adventure. And honestly, I don't. Some people have said like, why don't you talk to arborists and just like if they're cutting down a tree, go and get something. I don't make enough of these to develop that kind of relationship. This is not a high volume business, and they take 1 to 2 months to make. So I can't be taking calls every week from, hey Desmond, we got another tree, like come get it. Like, that would
Yeah.
be overwhelming. So it is. I have to kind of trust that logs will appear for me when I need them. And so far they have. Once in a while I get a call and there's some great piece of wood, and I'll just, take that for later. But really it's just being open, keeping my eyes up and my ears up, and waiting for them to come to me.
Yeah, I think it fits the whole vibe. It's like, this is recovered wood. It's ready to be something else.
Mm-hmm.
And you're kind of giving it the next step in its life.
Yeah, exactly. And I wonder how the tree feels about, like, well, I'd rather still be a tree, but
Yeah.
if it's already got to go, then why not become something else? I don't know if you believe in reincarnation or afterlives, but like, here's a way at least to participate, to keep participating in things, whether or not you've been reincarnated, like, you go on to affect other people in ways that you don't understand or could affect. I mean, a tree doesn't understand a Tiki band, so I like to think that maybe things are happening that we're not aware of. Like, we have influences that we're not aware of as well, and that's more of like my personal metaphysical approach to it. But I think it's a fun one.
Yeah. So how about the electronics part of this? So I think, one thing you point out is like point-to-point circuit construction,
Mm-hmm.
all tube based. So keeping
Mm-hmm.
everything analog. Um, your connections and kind of switches and plates and stuff. You like to work with brass as kind of a primary material. So yeah, maybe talk about some of those details as well.
Sure. Trying to think where to begin. Um, it's sort of point to point by necessity, because each amp is different. And even if I'm doing a circuit that I've done before, it's laid out differently because the tubes are in different places because it's a different carving. So each time I have to think, okay, where am I going to put the transformers this time? Where am I going to put the preamp circuitry? How am I going to wire it from this switch to that tube? Like, whatever. So it sort of fundamentally resists any kind of automation, any kind of assembly line, any kind of assembly line process, which is a pain in the ass, right? But it's fun for me because it keeps me engaged. Like, I'm always having to refigure this stuff out and watch myself and avoid ground loops or interference or getting my wires crossed. So that's a lot of the fun. So yeah, everything's hand wired, everything's point to point. There's just no other way to do it. And I like soldering, so that's cool too. Obviously, I use the best components I can. People have different opinions, sometimes quite strong ones, about this capacitor versus that capacitor. I have my opinions. If people are commissioning an amp and they want Mallory's, or they want F&T's, or they want some exotic capacitor that they're in love with, like, happy to use those, sure. But everyone's special, so I try to use the good stuff. And what else do I want to say about the construction? Oh yeah, you mentioned the brass. So all the mounting hardware is also custom because, again, you can't find this stuff off the shelf, and I have to make it specifically for my applications. And I've aligned on some consistent things that I cut out a stylized T, which is kind of my my logo mark, that I use to hold the power switch, not the power switch, the IEC jack plug socket, IEC socket, and the fuse holder, and then a little bow tie for the RCA inputs. And those are just another way to kind of tie it back to the brand and kind of the general shape of the Gucci spikes and stuff. So I like having control over that. I like being able to dial in the smallest details of the experience. Like the screws, for example. The screws are brass, but they're like flathead screws, like slotted screws, because I think that looks a little more traditional, a little more fun. And I always, like, when I tighten them, I have to make sure that the slot is lined up evenly and it's not, all kind of cockeyed. Like, yeah, it's tight, but it should be smooth. The screw should be countersunk in with the metal, so it's nice and flush. The metal itself is chiseled into the wood and countersunk, if you will, so it's smooth or flush with the surface. So all these little details that I like to put into it for a couple reasons. I guess the main reason is just that that's what I want to see. I'm an artist and it has to be my way. Like, I quit my job to do this. So I'm not trying to half-ass it or phone it in or do something that's like good enough. I'm really pouring myself into it. And I think I have a good eye and a good heart for what matters and what details am I overlooking and how can I refine this little piece in a new way that I haven't thought of yet. And that's really where I get a lot of the joy, a lot of the frustration too, but a lot of the joy out of this. And sometimes people ask me, when I say it takes 1 to 2 months to make one of these, sometimes longer, they're like, well, do you think you could do it faster? The goal isn't to do it faster. The goal is to do it right. And I'm always pushing the envelope a bit. So if I were to do something just the way I'd done it before, yeah, I could probably do it faster. But each time I'm trying to do something new. So I'm always in fresh territory. And that, that takes a little extra time because we have to figure it out. The upshot is everyone is special. Like, everyone's unique. Everyone's been thought through. And if you're looking for it, there's a lot of little details that get revealed in them.
Yeah, I think that's awesome that it's the thought and all the intention that's going into the making of these products, and whether someone's just leaving it all up to you or they're kind of there providing some feedback for what they want to kind of inspire their artwork, their amp that you're providing. And that's cool because it's the
sorry.
That's a step in the journey. Like, it gives this thing a story.
Yeah, exactly. One detail that I want to point out to you is that the power switch, the toggle switch, it's a brass switch that I found, which isn't just a typical bat. It's got a little like knob at the end, which also feels kind of cool and old-timey to me. But another thing that I wasn't expecting is because the switch is mounted in a wooden enclosure, because the thing's made of wood, right? And the switch goes on a brass plate that's then secured to the wood. So anyway, when you throw the switch, the wood has this resonance to it. And so the action of the switch has this really satisfying clunk that you don't have when it's just mounted to a metal panel. Like, it's subtle, but it's there, and it's super fun. You'll have to try it when you're at the show. Come by and check it out. Just throw the power switch.
Yeah, I think you can kind of liken it a little bit to the sensation that maybe people have when you're closing that door on that classic car, where it's just it's got that feel, that weight to it, and you kind of just it imparts an emotion. It's not just a dead appliance. It's like, wow, okay, there's that extra thing there.
Yeah, I love that you said that, because humans, we're emotional creatures. How much we're in touch with that can change from person to person or day to day. But at root, like, we're driven by emotions and we respond to things emotionally. And, more and more technology pulls us away from that. I mean, I left programming like just as AI was coming in. And that's, talk about emotionless, like, what's going on? That's a whole other thing. I don't think the world needs that. We're going to get it, right, one way or another. But what I think the world needs is more emotional stuff, and the things that we respond to emotionally are physical. It's weight. It's organic things. It's something that was made by another human. Like, we sense this intuitively, subconsciously, because we've been around it our whole, beyond more than our whole lives, you know, hundreds of thousands of years. Like it's in us. We're part of it. We can't separate it from us. And so when we have those moments, like you say, the car door has weight to it. We see the door move, and our body knows that's a heavy door. And then we know, like, that's a well-made car before we even hear it shut. And then we hear it shut, and then it confirms, like, oh yeah, you know, all of the cells in your body activate to it. And I love that. And those are the sorts of experiences that I want to provide.
Just awesome. Yeah. I mean, yeah, I can't wait for people to be able to experience this. And, you know, I guess, you know, I can mention it now that, you know, Desmond's going to be with us just, gosh, a little over a week here in Costa Mesa here at the show SoCal on June 6th, 7th, and 8th. And yeah, I had a question in here from one of our viewers asking if you're in a room or a booth. And yeah, you'll be able to find Desmond in the show's marketplace. He's going to have a booth in there. And I'm sure you'll bring a variety of things to show off. I don't know if you have something in mind already, or.
Yeah, I'll be bringing a bunch of the amps and a pair of speakers, and one of my album racks. Mostly for display. Mm-hmm. So we'll have the whole setup going. You can check them out. You can hear what they sound like. Obviously, it won't be a pristine listening environment, but be able to see what's up.
Very cool. And yeah, like we've mentioned a couple of times, you know, everything's handmade, and you know, your product will be unique if you reach out to Desmond. And you know, probably one of the ingredients above all the other things is it'll be 100% fun. Whatever you get, whatever he produces, it's going to be fun.
Yes, it will. Yes, it will.
So let's see. We can maybe get into a little bit on some, I guess maybe, logistic kind of specifics about what people can expect when actually like ordering a product. Like you mentioned, because these are handmade custom things, starting from scratch, that there's some lead time depending. What can people kind of expect as far as like budget? What should they kind of have ready to go into a project with you?
They start at 10,000. I would say most projects are between 15 and 25, depending. So typically we go in, someone has an idea, or you know, they want to hear me dream something up, and then I'll kind of drive that collaboration, and then we do some sketches and align on overall look and feel, circuitry, accessories, that kind of thing. Or they're driving it and they say, you know, I want to have a carving of my wife. Okay. Then we can work with that and drive that forward as well. So once we're in alignment there, then select the right log. Logs can be different sizes, and that also plays into what color we want it. Do we want it light colored, dark colored? Is it going to live indoors, outdoors? I say outdoors. If it's a stereo, it needs to live indoors. Those are not portable. And then I'll start carving. I mean, as you say, there's lead time. It's usually about 3 months of lead time. And then, yeah, once I start working on it, then there's some back and forth. I show some updates. You know, some clients like to be really involved, others a little more hands off. I like to have a bit of a surprise, but I want to make sure people are getting something that they're really into, while at the same time not micromanaging it, I guess, because people usually come to me because they want to trust me, and they want me to think of details that they haven't thought of yet. So I work on it. There's the carving stage where I cut the wood up. And then there's the wiring stage. I should say there's a wood finishing stage where it's stained, sealed, details are put in. Then there's wiring where that part comes together. I do some testing, burn it in a bit, and then ship it off. But what's interesting about this, it's not specific to commissions, but you have to plan it all in advance. I mean, some things reveal themselves as they go, like I said earlier, but I have to go in knowing where the tubes are going to be, and then knowing, okay, where the transformer is going to be. Okay, roughly how am I going to wire this? Because it's very easy to back yourself into a corner with, oh, my thing's over, it needs to be, you know, down on the foot, but this thing's in the head, and like that's not going to work. Or now I've forced myself into a ground loop, or you know, I physically don't have access to be able to get my soldering iron in to do the circuit. So you really have, there really is a fair amount of planning up front. And as I'm carving, knowing, okay, in 2 weeks, I'm going to have to come back and do something here. So here's my order of operations. So again, there's a lot of deliberations, and it's not just, there's not a lot of winging it. Although in the moment there is some improvisation, but there has to be a plan.
So along that lines, we've got a good question here from one of our viewers asking what kind of tube options, do you have kind of like fixed pairs that you usually always go with, or does it kind of differ?
You know, it just depends, because each one is its own thing. It's just as easy for me to make single-ended EL34s in triode mode versus a pair of 6L6s in push-pull. Obviously, like, it's different to build one circuit than the other. One can take a little more time, but it's not like I'm stuck with some circuit configuration because the new one is a blank slate. So I have a few designs that I like. I have a 6v6 power section that puts out about 10 watts, which sounds great. I'm working on a Class A EL84 driven power section now, which I haven't done before. I'm kind of excited to see how that turns out. That'll probably be, you know, around 6 watts, a little lower. But I also love the ones that are in the 20 watt section or 20 watt range when you get into like KT66s or EL34s. I think those are really great HiFi tubes. So it depends really on what the customer wants. If they like the sound of triode mode, if they like the sound of ultra linear, you know, if they want the big 300Bs, sure, let's do it. Let's do it. But I will say that certain tube configurations lend themselves to certain carvings. Like if you have a giant carving, you probably don't want little EL84s dotting the thing. Like it doesn't, it doesn't seem commensurate with the piece. So it's funny how that is an element of the overall art piece as well. It's not just the carving, it's not just the circuit, it's kind of a mix of both. So most things can be made to work. If you want something really elaborate, if you want a bunch of tone controls, if you want a RIA, like phono preamp in it, I can't fit that into a small enclosure. But the big ones are more fun anyway, so.
It sounds like I might know the answer to this based on our talk here, but we've got the question if there's been anything that you've actually kind of had to like turn down or say you actually couldn't do, since you're offering such bespoke, you know, projects.
You know, people have asked me to build guitar amps, and I've had to say no to those, not because I can't build them. I got my start building guitar amps. Like, that's fine. But guitar amps and the like, those are workhorses. You know, you take those to the gig, you spill beer on them.
Yeah.
Like, I know how that goes. Like, those things are workhorses. They had to be built a certain way, and that's cool. The Tiki amps are queens. They sit there, they hold court. So I've had to let some of those projects go. Also, you know, with mine, like the tubes are out and exposed. and you don't want to have that on stage. Like, you don't want a drunk person bumping into something. And I think there's a way to build an amp for, say, a studio, where it's in a more protected environment and you can be a little more creative with it. But I'm wary of, like, I don't want to make something that can easily be abused, under what I would call normal circumstances. So I think there's room for, like, Tiki themed, more traditional guitar amps, like, in the boxes. I actually saw one. It was a plywood box that had been carved and torched, and it looked pretty cool. But it was, still just a box. It wasn't like a sculpture or anything. So those projects don't work out.
All right. So I think one kind of last direct question for me, and we'll see what kind of answer you can come up with, is what is the deal with airline peanuts?
The deal keeps changing. Have you seen the website? You know what he's referring to?
No, I don't. But I saw it on there, so I figured I had to ask.
It's my last FAQ on the website, the frequently asked question. What's the deal with airplane peanuts? And the joke is that the joke hasn't aged well because they don't serve airplane peanuts anymore. So there is no deal with airplane peanuts. Coincidentally, I got some peanuts the other day. I stopped by this corner store on the way home because I needed some for this meal I was making. I bought a box of Planters peanuts. I thought, great, peanuts, cool. You would not believe what goes into these peanuts. You'd think ingredients like peanuts and some salt.
Yeah.
There's I should go get it. There's like sugar. There's like this onion powder. There's some kind of corn syrup solid. There's another kind of starch. And I'm like, why is all this stuff in my peanuts? And I get they're trying to amp up the flavor a bit, but it was still like, I don't think I'll buy these again. So I don't know what the deal is with those peanuts either. But anyway, that's my relevant recent experience to this topic.
So, yeah, I think what we can kind of try and wrap up on a little bit here, and maybe while I'm doing this, if you've got a sample of something that we can show on camera to everybody really quick.
Sure.
I just want to ask, what are the best places to go? Because I know you're on Instagram, you've got your own direct website. So what's the best way for a potential customer to reach out to you and maybe get started with the design?
Sure. If you're local to LA, you can book a shop visit, like an equipment demo, if you want to come by and hear one of them in person. See what they sound like. Maybe you want to bring your own speakers or whatever, and we can set that up in my studio. If you're outside of Los Angeles, it's trickier. I'm not represented by any stores at the moment. If any of you are listening, we can talk. I'm working on some recordings of them to put on YouTube. Honestly, I feel a little weird about that because it's like, here's a recording of my thing through some microphone you don't know, through your speakers. Like, it doesn't really tell you how it sounds, but people like seeing that stuff. So I'll get that together. But yeah, Instagram is the best way to keep in touch. That's where I'm most active. I also have a Facebook page. And all of the, some of the work is on the website. Where you can see the collection to give you an idea of what we've done, what we can do, but basically a starting point for your own ideas. And I have a YouTube channel where I do some other things, work on my motorcycle, but there is a video where I make one of the amps, so you can see everything that goes into it.
Yeah, I'll throw that link up here to your channel on the screen. People can reference that, catch it in the comments later. But yeah, definitely check out that video. I took a look at it last night and I was mesmerized for 45 minutes.
Yeah, they're cool. They're cool. And I hope I was able to capture what goes into them.
Yeah, it was really fun. And it's like a pseudo time lapse and hands-on explanation, and it's really fun. So yeah, I just want to encourage you guys to come visit Desmond. He's going to be in our show marketplace in Costa Mesa at the show SoCal, and that's going to be June 6th, 7th, and 8th at the Hiton, Orange County, Costa Mesa. And it was awesome to meet and chat with you, Desmond, and really looking forward to checking out your stuff in person and yeah, getting to shake the hand that carved the faces.
Thanks, Brian. It's been great to meet you and chat a bit and tell the story. And yeah, looking forward to seeing you in Costa Mesa next week. And here's another fun thing. I'll leave you on this note. You can come by and not just hear them, you can touch them.
Yeah.
Right? One time, I want to close with this story. One time, a blind guy came up to my display. I was exhibiting at NAMM earlier this year, and a blind person came up and he said, "Can I touch your amps?" And I said, "Of course you can." And what followed was this awesome experience where he's putting his hands all over these things, and I'm talking, and you feel this, and here's the switch, and here's where the wood is kind of funny because some bug ate through it, and then here's where the tubes come out and whatever. And he's like, "Oh yeah, interesting." And it was cool because that's how I experience the amps. I touch them. I make them. Like I know how they feel. I'm intimately. That's how I mostly relate to these things, is through touch. And finally, I got to share that with someone else. And again, most stereos, like there's nothing to touch. You engage them with one sense, whereas the Tiki tube amps, you engage with 3 senses. You hear them, you see them, and you can touch them. And it gets back to that like emotional experience that we were talking about earlier. So yeah, don't miss that when you're out next week. Make sure you get a feeling.
Yeah, so everyone head to theshownow.com. You can pre-order, prepay for tickets, or sign up at the door. But definitely check out Desmond's Tiki Tube amps. So have a good night, everyone. Signing off for now.
Thanks a lot.
Thanks.